Now, the investigation is already underway. So a lot of people are wondering, we were certainly wondering, what are investigators going to be looking for? Now, Doug joins us now because Doug has also been a pilot in addition to a news anchor and reporter. You have been a pilot for more than 3 decades. So can you give us some insight as to how this all works, how it begins?
Yeah, the simple process is NTSB is going to lead the civil investigation, basically. The Army will also conduct their own independent military investigation as well. But every investigation, as we know, begins with the known elements. And what we know from what's called ADSB data, it appears that all was pretty normal for the inbound American Airlines flight last night. They came in on an approach for runway 1, an instrument approach, but then they sidestepped over to runway 33 at Reagan National. I'll just point out that is not out of the ordinary. Altitude and airspeed data all appears to be normal until the moment of the collision. NTSB is going to have, of course, the final word on all of that once they get access to the flight data recorder, which they should be able to do in fairly short order since everything is in such shallow water.
That's for the CRJ. What do we know about the Black Hawk so far?
So it's interesting. If you've been on the internet, right, there's 1,000 things out there. What we know for sure, based on Secretary of Defense Hegseth earlier today, there was a fairly experienced crew of 3 on board. They were on a training mission. They were apparently using night vision goggles last night, and they were flying down the eastern side of the Potomac, and it's commonly known in the military as Route 4, and that route for military helicopters has been in use in D.C. for decades. It is in no way out of the ordinary, but everybody being honest, it is congested. It is also altitude restricted on the side of the helicopters. And on the way in today, I took a few minutes and spoke to a former Marine helicopter pilot and a night vision instructor, in fact, for flying, and asked him to give all of us a little bit of insight into the advantages, but also the limitations for pilots who are flying with night vision goggles like this crew may have been flying last night.
Cultural lighting, community lighting really can degrade the performance of them. So think of it like this. Even with today's night vision goggles, if you have 20/20 vision and you're using night vision goggles, your actual vision is like 20/40.
Yeah, so there is a degradation, right, as far as being able to see everything perfectly. It serves a purpose for low-flying missions in deserts and things like that, right, for these guys and the women who go into combat, into zones like that when it's required. But it can also be a little degrading factor as well.
Right, especially with all the lights, the light pollution
is the way to put it.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, based on the radio traffic with the tower, we know that the crew of the helicopter said that they saw the regional jet, but they would pass behind them. Is it possible that they didn't actually see that jet, but perhaps another jet?
The short answer on that is the NTSB is undoubtedly going to look at that, Karen. I think it's a very real possibility. You can tell from decades of flying experience, not just from myself, but from everybody we know in the industry, looking from the ground to the sky. Super simple for all of us to go, hey, airplane, helicopter. We can see it because it's against this single color background all the time. But when you're airborne, the perspective from up top looking down below, day or night, it is not that easy. Other aircraft can often be hard to spot in the mix of colors in the landscape. You can lose an aircraft real easy. And then at night, around airports like Reagan specifically, it's a sea of lights that pilots can look at, and they'll all tell you, definitely be challenging to spot other aircraft. And I also asked John about that specifically. What would that regional jet have looked like from the perspective, let's say, of the helicopter crew?
Yeah. Now, they would have all of their lights on, landing lights and strobe lights. But those lights only project directly in front of your aircraft. So if they were in the turn, the nose of the RJ had already turned past the point where the helicopter was not likely to see a bright shining light there.
Yeah, and understand that from the perspective of this helicopter flying southbound, the RJ turning inbound like this, and if that right wing is high, at the end of the day, the reality is there were lots of other lights. I don't want to say 1,000 or more, but there were lots of other lights out there. And at night, it can be confusing.
And I think the context here, Doug, is, we are used to, like you said, looking up in the sky, seeing things a certain way. We're not pilots. You obviously are. But the perspective that things look completely different from that vantage point.
And we're stationary. They're not.
Right. And once again, let's be very clear, making no call on what we don't know, because there's a lot that we don't know. The investigation will turn those leaves over. But these are the known quantities right now, and this is what will be literally the beginning point for the NTSB investigation.
Doug, thank you very much. Really appreciate the perspective and the insight. Thank you.